Participants in the conference. You will now be placed into the conference.
Again, my name is Sue Szyminski, and I'm the faculty PI of the Data Center. And what we have prepared today is, hopefully everybody's on to the WebEx. We're going to sort of scroll through some PowerPoints we put together working jointly with Harvard. And what we're going to accomplish today is we're going to, as we onboard NICHD sites to participate in the PHACS AMP Up Lite training and protocol, we're going to make sure that you're familiar with the DMC systems needed to carry out the tasks of such as enrolling a patient, entering data, obtaining CRFs, and using a lot of the site utilities, being able to enter patient questionnaires, and so on. So getting to the first slide, this is number 2. What we're going to do is, again, I'm going to do a slight introduction, and then you're going to meet the data managers, and they're going to do various parts of the presentation as well. Feel free to interject. If you need to ask a burning question throughout, that's fine. If not, we'll have time at the end where you can ask questions as well. But again, the goal of this training is to make sure that you have all the tools and resources and know where they are so when you do start to enroll a participant, you certainly know how to carry out the PHACS project. So I'm starting with slide 4. And again, you'll meet each of the data managers. We have 3 main data managers on the project. They'll each be presenting today, so they'll introduce themselves when they are basically doing their presentation. We have a few lab data managers as well. You'll meet one today. And then we have myself, and then we have our forms administrator who also oversees our Loom, which is our patient questionnaire that we'll go through. And then obviously, to make all this happen, we have a bunch of core departments that actually help the PHACS project and support the DMC and Harvard in carrying out the networks. So what we're going to provide, again, we have the central database for the PHACS project, sponsored by the NICHD. You're going to learn after today how to enroll a participant using the web-based enrollment system. It's called our subject enrollment system. Many of you work with other projects that we're involved in, Frontier Science, so even though we know that you know how to use some of the systems, we're not going to assume anything. We're going to make sure that we deliver the material. So it might be old hat for some of you, and if it's not, we'll certainly make sure that you have the tools and the resources to be able to enroll a participant. Data collection, we do use our EDC system called eData. It's very simple to use. We'll go through it at a high level. Many of you are already using this for the Impact project, but we'll at least tell you what you need to know and point out differences in the PHACS project. Our case report forms, although we still do ship out CRFs, we're moving away from it on the PHACS project. We have a nice utility where we electronically render forms for all of the PHACS projects, especially, this one of interest is the PHACS AMP Up Lite protocol 400. That's where you'll obtain any kind of paper CRFs. We are moving towards direct data entry on the PHACS project, and so even though we render the forms electronically, many sites just enter right into the EDC system. And then we'll talk about our lab data management system. All of you are probably aware of it, or if not you know it's in your laboratories for other DAIS-sponsored projects. And then we'll talk about our DMC portal, and this is something where we have our web utilities, all of our programs, so it's sort of like your interface and it's your dashboard to actually interfacing with Frontier Science for this particular protocol. So next, I'm on slide 6. Okay, so before I turn it over, I want to talk about, so this is talking about getting access. It's getting access to the systems, like our enrollment system and our portal and everything you need to do to conduct this protocol through Frontier Science on behalf of the PHACS network. And so we'd like to get all sites, and we'll be working with Westat, Jennifer Bryant, and the leaders at Westat to make sure everyone, best laid plans is to proactively get everybody set up so when you do have the participant consented, we're ready to go. So many of you maybe know this, but there's 3 levels of access that we can grant somebody at your site. There's level 2, which actually is the highest level of access, allow people to actually enter data, change data, order forms, basically do everything they need to. Again, enrollment is separate to that if you want somebody being able to enroll a participant. And when you fill out a registration form or you extend your current access because maybe you're already working with us through another project to the PHACS project, we'll go over that with you with our support department. And then there's level 1 if you have certain staff at your office that you really only want them to view data, not change data. And then there's standard level where you can just sort of obtain information. And so I'm just highlighting this slide to say that we really need you to proactively work with us to get the access in place proactively before you really need it. And so we'll be keeping track with the WestDat leaders to make sure all sites are up and running and have done this part of the task. And again, this is only a one-time deal. Once you do this, you won't have to do it again. And so we'll be working with each of you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Alex DePernia, which is one of our DMs on the PHACS project, to go through the next set of slides with you. Are there any questions on the first part? Okay, great. Alex.
Thanks, Sue. So hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to walk you through how to register a participant and obtain your site credentials and your participant credentials for the online surveys, as well as going through how to obtain our COS electronically and then entering data into our data capture system. So before we get into enrolling a participant, I want to go through a few logistical items. First, when you're ready to enroll, you'll need to assign a PID to your participant, or a participant identification number. It's also referred to as a PAD ID. This is just a unique number that identifies your participant on the protocol. And they're assigned by the site to each of your potential study participants prior to enrolling, like I said. And what's important to note here is that a participant will keep the same PID for all studies and when they transfer to other sites. So if your potential participant already has an ACTG, impact, or PHACS PID, you'll give that PID to the participant when you enroll in PH400. Otherwise, you'll assign them a new PHACS PID. You'll get your PID from the PID list. They're generated by the DMC and emailed to the site coordinators and site data managers. New lists are generated upon request when a site completes their original list, and you can request a new list when you have about 50 PID numbers remaining. And just another important note is to be aware of is that lists are generated for your site, not for your study. Next, we'll go through the study identification number, or the SID. This is a sequence number and a check digit that your participant receives upon successful enrollment through the enrollment system. An important note that we want you to be aware of is that since PHACS is a non-treatment study, we have kind of repurposed the SID and we call it a PIN. Use the PIN as an ID for your participants when they log into the online assessments, and we'll get more into that in a few minutes. And then the last little item is the eligibility checklist. This is the form in the subject enrollment system that contains a series of questions, and it's used to determine if a participant is eligible for a specific protocol. And all of the questions in the checklist are derived from the inclusion criteria of sections of the protocol document. So when you're ready to enroll, you're going to use our subject enrollment system. It's a web-based program that enrolls participants and verifies their eligibility for a protocol. And again, once they've been successfully enrolled, a participant will be assigned a SID or PIN for PHACS. To obtain or get to the subject enrollment system, you're going to log on to the centerscience.org website and log into your portal account. On the PHACS tab, the subject enrollment system is located under the Systems heading. When you click on the subject enrollment system, this is the first screen that you'll see. And you'll be able to pick your institution from the drop-down there. Right now it just says test, but that's where your institution will be. And make sure you choose Study PH400 and version 1. Some sites like to print out a checklist and complete it offline before enrolling your participant. You can do that by clicking the blank eligibility checklist box up at the top. The next screen will ask you to choose a step for the study. For PH400, there will only be one step, so you'll always just click step 1 on this screen. And then a few things to point out as you're going through the checklist. Again, if you complete the checklist offline and you go in to enroll, just make sure that the version number for the protocol matches and the eligibility checklist date. And then just pay attention to the date formats and other formats that are instructed of you throughout the checklist. There's skip logic embedded in the subject enrollment system. So if the skip logic will bring you to an appropriate question and will block you from other questions that aren't required to be completed. So with the example shown here, if you choose no for question 11, it says question 8001, and you'll automatically be brought to 8001 and you won't see question 12. Another point to show you here is that the system, some questions within the checklist just depend on questions that you have answered previously. So here with question 4, it says the system will check the number of years from question 3 to today. And all you'll need to do is click the box that's shown below question 4, and the system will do its job behind the scenes. And once you've completed all of the questions in the checklist, you'll be asked to complete the additional information section, which is at the bottom of the checklist. And then when you've completed all of that, you'll just click Enroll, and it's going to ask you, are you sure? And you're going to say, okay, you've enrolled your participant. When you successfully enrolled, you'll receive an email with an attachment that will show this header at the top and then all of your checklist questions and answers below. But what's important for this screen is that this is where you'll get the SID or the PIN for your participant. It says here just as a full tip, the SID, also referred to as the PIN on page 100, and the PIN will be listed there. So how do you obtain your participant credentials and your site credentials? So again, we're just really trying to drive this point home that your SID is the PIN on PHACS. And then once you have your PIN for your participant, you're going to need to go to our PHACS credential utility on the FISTRIF portal, where you'll be able to obtain your username and passwords for the clinic staff to access the Amp This Up participant website, and you'll be able to get the participant's keyword for their online survey. So when they take the online survey, your participant will need both their PIN and this keyword to access the survey. The PHACS credential utility is on the PHACS portal under the Utilities tab. When you click on the PHACS credential utility, you'll be asked to enter the study and your participant's PIN. When you click Submit, a PDF will generate your site and your participant's credentials. So under the Ellume section, as you'll see here, Ellume is the software we use to build our online surveys. So the participant's keyword will be listed there in their PIN. And then the section below that shows the youth website with your site number and your site passcode. So after you've enrolled your participant and you've obtained your credentials, you'll need to register your participant on the Amp This Up website. And how you register a participant will depend on if they are present in the clinic for entry. For a participant that is present in the clinic, you'll need to go to this URL that's listed here, ampthisup.org/signup. The screen on the right shows you what you'll see. You'll select your institution, enter your site, obviously your number, and then your site passcode that you've obtained from the PHACS credential utility. You'll select PH400 or Amp Up Lite, enter your participant's PIN, and then press, make sure you click the patient is present, and then you click Submit. So if your participant is present in the clinic, the participant will enter their own name, an email address, which will function as their website username, and they'll have to choose a password for the website. If your participant does not have an email address, the little asterisk at the bottom of the screen will tell you how to assign them or set them up with an email address through Google. And then we would recommend that you instruct your participants to write down their email address, their website, the website password, the URL for the website, and keep all of that in the same place where they keep their PIN and keyword. This is just showing you the screen the participant will fill out. So if your participant is not in the clinic for entry, you'll need to obtain an email address from them and provide them with the ampthisup.org website URL. You'll go to the same URL that was on the previous screen and enter your institution, your site passcode again from the PHACS credential utility, and your participant's PIN number. You will not click Patient is Present, and just click Submit. This time you will have to enter your participant's name and the email address that they've given you and their date of birth, and then you'll click OK, I'm done. What happens next is the participant will get an email from the system that contains an activation link to activate their website. The link is only active for 24 hours, so I would make sure that they know that, but it's also stated in the subject line of the email as well as within the body of the email. So the participant will be prompted to verify their date of birth, and then they'll choose their website password. Once they've entered this information, their account will be activated and they can log into the participant website. So once the participant is in the website, they'll go to the My Surveys tab. This is where the links for their study surveys will be listed. And then when they click on the link, they'll be taken away from the AmthSub website and brought into a Loom where they'll begin their survey. All right, so now that you've enrolled your participant, you have all your credentials, where do you get your CRFs? So a lot of sites have started using direct data entry. You can do that, and if some sites also like to fill out the paper CRFs, and this is where you can obtain them electronically on the Forms Management utility. It's located on the Frontier portal under Case Report Forms heading. So to figure out which forms you're going to need for a particular visit, you can use the Forms tab in the Forms Management utility, or you can use the Visit Forecasting tab. So we'll go through all of the tabs that are available in the Forms Management utility. First, with the Forms tab, this is the screen you'll see when you click on the Forms tab. You'll be asked to choose the study, so you'll choose PH400. The next screen gives you a listing of either you choose from all PH400 forms or you can pick a particular packet. If you pick a visit packet, you'll see all of the forms required for that visit will be listed here. And the required forms are marked with an X and visit-directed forms are marked with a V, and if you need those, you can click the box to the left. Just some other options within this section of the Forms tab. You can change the language for a form. Some forms will be available in Spanish, and if a particular form is available in Spanish, it'll be listed here when you change the language to English, or I'm sorry, to Spanish, or another language. You can add multiple forms to a packet. You can also view the form. If you click the view, it'll pop up and you see what it looks like. If you are looking for a particular form, you can use the filter function here at the bottom, type the form in, and it'll pop up. And then another option within the Forms tab is you can pre-fill the headers in your packet. You can either pre-fill all the forms, or in the box to the right, you'll see you can exclude the header from specific forms. You just click the box for the forms you don't want the header information to be filled in for. This is an example of a pre-filled form. I would just be aware of what you're entering, again, because all of the forms within the packet will have the header information listed. So if you enter something incorrectly, it'll go on all of the forms. So just be careful as you're keying the data there. And then this slide shows your output options. You have an option to just download the packet. You can view it there, or you can print right from the Forms Management utility. The next tab within the utility is the Schedules tab. This just will allow you to download the data collection form schedules that are associated with the study. When you click PH400, the schedules for the study will pop up on the next screen. The same goes for the Menus tab, the Menu Pages tab. You will be able to pick the menu pages that are associated with the study and for a visit. And lastly, the Visit Forecasting tab. This allows you to project which participants are expected in the clinic for a particular visit. You'll enter the criteria for your PAD ID study or site, and then a range of dates here. And then the participants that are expected for a visit within those range of dates will be listed here, and you can click a particular PID, and then a forms packet will be created for that participant. So PHACS uses eData as our data capture system. It's a Windows application that runs on a PC and provides a method for entering data into case report forms and then transferring it to the DMC. The data entry interface is an exact replica of the form, so it's pretty straightforward when you're keying data. eData allows upfront data checking. There's an online correct function that allows you to modify records that you've already submitted to our database. And it also has Smart Update, which will keep the system up to date. This slide is just showing you how to install and activate eData. It's actually a really helpful slide. If you don't have eData installed, you can follow this slide, and if you have any questions, you can contact our user support department. They'll be very happy to help you set up eData. Some other helpful tools are within the computing manual that's on the FISTRIF portal under site support. There's a computing requirements document that I would recommend checking out, and then the eData user manual is also there. It has lots of useful tips within. And then this slide is just showing you again that the eData screen is an exact replica of the paper CRF. allowing you for easy data entry. And so now I'm going to pass this on to Angela Ellis, who's going to walk you through participant online surveys.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to cover the section on our participant online surveys, which your enrolled participants in the AMP Up Lite will be doing at each of their visits to collect data. So Loom, you'll hear us use that term quite often. That's the software we use to create the web-based surveys. And for PHACS, we use this to either do participant-completed or caregiver-completed surveys. And Loom is also programmed to automatically generate a gift card code to the participant as their compensation upon survey completion. So for accessing the online surveys for AMP Up Lite, there's two methods you could use. One would be to go directly to the Frontier Science portal on the PHACS tab, and we have a PDF document there that will list all of the survey links for you, which I'll show later. And then there's also the AMP This Up participant website. So once you register your participant, as Alex showed earlier, they'll be able to log in there and access the survey directly through the survey links that are displayed. Now, a key thing is that the only survey link that will appear is the one they're expected to take. So if they're expected to complete year one, they're only going to see their year one link once they are in that survey window. If you're going to use the FSRIF portal option, the URL to each survey is posted in that PDF document. It's under the documentation heading. You would copy and paste your URL directly into the browser, and then you or the participant could enter their PIN and keyword directly into the survey to get them started. This is just a shot of the portal as to where that PDF document will be located. And as we add the visits and the surveys for those, the document will get updated with the new links. This is what that PDF document will look like, and the participant website registration link is also available to you within that PDF for reference if you don't have the URL readily available. So once the participant enters their PIN and keyword and goes through the survey, they are going to, at the very end, click Submit and be presented with a $75 instant Amazon gift card code. That code can be used immediately, and the text on the screen on that end page does instruct the participant to either print or write down the code and keep it in a safe place. The text does also instruct the participant to leave that screen open if they are in the clinic doing the survey, and I would remind your participants to do that. So once they're finished and you come back into wherever they're taking the survey, this will indicate to you that the survey is complete and has been submitted, and then this way you can make sure that they've written down their gift card code or have a way of getting it. We'll also be programming in an email alert that'll go to the site staff when the participant has submitted the survey. We'll be contacting the sites shortly after the training just to see who you'd like included in those email groups so we can get those set up for you. Another thing to stress, when you're doing the survey in the clinic, there are a couple questions in the beginning that will need to be answered before you step out of the room. So we're going to ask you who's completing the survey, how you're administering it basically. Is the participant going to take it themselves? Are you, as a study nurse, going to read the questions to them, or is the participant's legal guardian taking the survey? And then where are you completing the survey, if you're in the clinic or outside of the clinic? For those participants who are in the study clinic, the study coordinator will be answering the question on the bottom about completion of their transition to adult care from their pediatric or adolescent care provider. So you should be answering this and then letting them start taking over the survey. So the next two slides just have a couple tips and use suggestions. Loom works best in the browsers that are listed there. One thing to tell the participant is to always use the next and previous buttons that are displayed on the screen and not the question or the buttons in the navigation in the browser. If a participant doesn't want to answer a question, Rather Not Answer is there for them to help them move past it. Again, the navigation buttons in the browser should not be used because this could cause the survey to accidentally close. If you're receiving any kind of error message when trying to log into a Loom, or if there's server issues, you can always reach out to FISRIP user support or the PHACS data managers for some immediate help.
Connect called and they're trying to ask me for IP address and all this information that I didn't know, so I redirected.
Could you mute your phone if you're not asking a question, please? Is there any questions about a Loom or the online surveys? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Oswald Dadson, who is one of our lab data managers for PHACS, and he's going to go over the specimen collection.
Hello, everybody. So the next few slides are just going to talk about specimen collection, specimen management, and specimen tracking. So to accomplish those tasks, we'll be using two major tools. The first is the lab processing chart, and the second is the LDMS. So the lab processing chart does a few things. It just basically details all specimen collection, any specimen processing information that the processing labs are going to use, and any information that the processing labs will use to enter information into the LDMS. And the second major tool that we're going to be using is the lab data management system. This slide is just basically detailing all the different samples that will be collected as part of this protocol. And the information on this is also available in the lab processing chart. But the good thing is that you won't have to actually manually enter any of this information into the LDMS. We've gone through and actually created what are known as preloads. And a preload is just basically taking all the information that's in the lab processing chart and puts that into the LDMS so that whenever you're entering participant information or specimens collected, you won't have to manually enter any of this information. You just have to trigger the preload and just enter any additional information that's needed. So this is just some information, some specifics about the lab data management system. It's a LIMS system. It's locally installed on your PC. It runs on an Oracle database. We have a programming group that creates updates that are just typically downloaded from our website. And later on in a few slides, we'll talk about what is known as exporting and how you receive information that way also. So the lab data management system does a few things. It manages specimen inventory. It allows you to create a storage structure that mimics exactly how you have samples stored in your local freezer. And it also allows you to, enter information about shipment records. And it allows us to just basically track all this information. It also, an important part about the LDMS is exporting. And when you export information, all that information, the inventory information, the storage information, and the shipment information, all that gets sent to Frontier Science as the data center, and we're able to use this information for various purposes. So this is just a flow of specimens that begins with specimen collection at the clinic, at the site. It goes through the CRF's sample tracking information. And again, all that information is captured in the lab processing chart as well. So it starts with specimen collection, and all these specimens ends up at the Fisher biorepository for storage. Now, the next few slides, I won't really spend too much time on because they're just detailing several modules of the LDMS. So I'll just quickly move through these.
You actually have time, so you can go.
Okay, so on this screen is the specimen management module of the LDMS. And this allows us to enter the inventory information. And I've included a screenshot of what the specimen management will actually look like. So after you've entered some of the things we like to refer to as trigger information, such as the group, the participant ID, and the protocol study, the LDMS is going to trigger a preload, and all you'll have to do is just select the preload, and it will pre-populate all the different samples that are expected at this visit. So you won't have to manually enter any of this information. You just have to go back and enter all the fields that I have currently highlighted in red. So the storage module in LDMS allows you to just, like I mentioned earlier, create a mirror image of your storage structure in your actual lab. You can create freezers, you can create racks, you can create shelves, and the system also allows you to create containers or boxes and place those specimens into that box. There's also a shipment module in LDMS that allows you to view your shipment history. You can also search for all samples that have been shipped from your lab to other labs. And as part of this protocol, you'll be routinely shipping specimens to Fisher on a monthly basis. So anytime you perform a shipment, we're able to see that information after you perform an export. It also allows you to import specimens that you have received, and it also gives you the opportunity to QA and QC samples and any other shipments that you have created before you actually ship them out. So after the inventory information, after the storage information, and after the shipment information has been entered into LDMS, the next crucial step about the LDMS is performing an export. And this is crucial because we don't see any of the information that you enter into your LDMS until you perform an export. We usually encourage labs to export their data at least once a week. But as more data is entered, as more samples are stored, and as more shipments take place in your lab, we like to see that as close to real time as possible. So it's really important to export data, as soon as data changes, as soon as information is added. Now, whenever you perform an export, we're able to see all the samples that you've entered in specimen management, any type of samples that you've actually placed in storage, and any shipments that you've performed since the last time that you exported. Once an export takes place, we take all that information and we package it and it's placed into the PHACS central database. Now, the information that we receive from your lab is really useful because it allows us to do quite a few different things. We can perform data QA to just basically compare the CRF information to the LDMS information to just make sure that whenever we expect a sample, we actually have a sample entered into the LDMS. It allows us to do inventory checks, again, to just make sure that all expected samples are correctly and accurately logged into the LDMS. And it also gives us and the entire PHACS team an opportunity to just know what samples are available whenever it's time to perform testing on these samples. So with that being said, that's all I had for the lab portion, and I'm now going to turn it over to Lori Dewey.
Or Lori Butler. I know we've presented. Are there any questions so far for any of us?
This is Lisa from Site 5011. I do have a couple of questions. One is on the surveys and one is on the PID assignments, but would you rather have me wait till the end of the whole presentation?
Yeah, I'm going to go over some resources right now, Lisa, but hang on to those questions because we can certainly answer them at the end.
Okay, thanks.
So we've presented a fair amount of information, and I know how it works for me is you get all this information, and until you start doing things, you really don't know even what your questions are, even though Lisa has questions today. So there are many, many outlets and resources that we have at Frontier Science for you to ask those questions later. And I'm going to move the fourth dot, fifth dot up to the top because contacting the PHACS data managers is always your best bet. We do have additional resources, computing manuals, programs and utilities, QA tools, help files, but we're always a phone call away and more than happy and anxious to answer your questions. So please keep that in mind. That's our group email address that's on the screen, but we'll also have a group phone number and individual phone numbers a little bit later for you to contact. So this is the Frontier portal, and we've highlighted just some of the utilities, tools, reports, systems, site support that might be beneficial to you. I'm suggesting that as soon as you get your portal account set up, you come in here and you start clicking on these reports and resources and take a look and see what best benefits you and what you're going to be using, and then you're probably going to have questions for us, so please don't hesitate to call. QA tools, really important. You're going to want to definitely look through those. Those are the reports you're going to run daily. Data view might be new for some of you. The PHACS credential utility we went over, that's a very important one. I'm going to just highlight some of the other ones that, that might be of interest to you, but definitely go in here and become very familiar with the portal. So we've talked about the computing manual a couple of times. It's a collection of user documentation that you can come in and take a look at for subject enrollment, e-data, data checks, T-join. There's a wealth of information in here that's available to you. Every once in a while enrolling a subject or participant, you might make an error. Sometimes it's a birth date. That's a rather common one. It could be a number of things. So this is the utility that you would come into the portal and use to make an eligibility checklist correction. Feel free to contact us first if you have questions, but you can certainly put the request through this utility. Sometimes when you answer a particular question and it has skipped you past that group of questions, now that you're going to answer it differently, you may have to answer additional questions. Again, feel free to contact us if you're doubtful about how the change of your eligibility checklist might affect those, and we can certainly help you through that process. Healthcare provider report is an important one for you to definitely take a look at. What this utility will do for you, if your participant during the ILLUME survey has received care or medical care outside of your clinic, for example, for a bone fracture, for mental health care, anything that might have occurred outside of your site, this utility will give you the information that you need to follow up on the medical records. So once you have their written permission to release their medical records, you can go into this utility, and it's located on the portal, and you can run this several different ways. You can run it for your entire site. You can run it for a specific PIN or a specific PAD ID. And it'll give you the full history of what that participant answered in their online surveys. It's only going to contain what they've answered in their surveys for additional medical care or outside medical care. So all your information may not be in there, but the questions they answered for the additional healthcare providers will be in there. And here's an example of what the report looks like when you run it. And you can see that it gives you the main healthcare provider, which would be you, and then the supplementary care. And it lists single fracture, pap smear follow-up, and other healthcare. So this is an important utility that you will want to become familiar with this one. The PHACS keying window, so this is the information you need to know when you need to enter your forms. After your visit, the visit form is a 2-week form, and that starts the clock ticking, and your other forms need to be entered. Generally speaking, they're 2-, 4-, and 8-week forms, and this is listed on the portal, so you'll want to check this at the beginning of the study to see what those keying windows look like. Unanswered queries. So as we're looking at data, either the DMC or through the statisticians, questions always come up, and we will send you a query asking, hopefully in a very succinct way, what we're looking at and what we need you to check or give us additional data on. And so it comes through this query system, and this is what it looks like when you see the queries that are listed for your site. You can hit the reply button to answer these queries you need to be careful. Sometimes we list multiple PAD IDs within a query, and it's important to answer for each particular PAD ID whatever questions we're asking. So you would hit reply, and often you provide us the answer, and it's all said and done. Sometimes we have to send the query back and ask you additional information, but this is where you would hit the reply button to answer the query through the query system. The Unresolved Airlift. So as you enter your data into eData, there are logical checks built within the system that will come up with several questions often if the data in question hits one of these logical checks. You run your update report in the morning, and you can see where these the tracked errors have come up. The SCs take a little bit to get used to, but once you kind of see what the question is asking, you'll know what needs to be double checked in what you've entered on in eData. The Delinquency Viewer will help you understand what forms are delinquent within a visit for a particular PAD ID. You enter your study, the site number, and that PAD ID, or you can run it for your entire site just by hitting submit, and it says all forms. And it will display the forms that are delinquent or that need to be entered into eData. Here's what the report looks like. And you can see the ones we've highlighted in red, those are the delinquent forms for that particular PAD ID for that particular visit. And again, you can run a warnings report at any point, which you can run all of them, which will give you both your outstanding warnings and the ones that you've resolved. I think the next slide is your resolved. This is what the report looks like as far as the ones that you either resolved within the resolved program and said that the data was correct, or these are still outstanding warnings that need to be proposed in resolve. And this is the resolve program. This is where you actually come in and tell us whether the data is correct, or if you, and we can, at that point, if you say the data is correct and we take a look and we approve it, then we've agreed with you that the data is correct. Every once in a while, you may say that the data is correct, but when we take a look, we're going to ask for, that you take a second look to confirm, or we may disapprove it and say, for example, no, that's not the patient PAD ID, it's the caregiver PAD ID within the body of the form or the header of the form, or there's something that has to be resolved that's discrepant. And at that point, you would want to tell us what your action is going to be, and we approve it or disapprove it, and then you go and change your data in eData. And that's the process that we sort of go through and resolve. And there's, and there's a display of what you see when you go into the resolve program. I know we've gone through this rather quickly, and there's some newness, the Illume, the PHACS credential utility, but here is your main source of information when you have these questions. And once you get started, I can guarantee there's going to be questions. The email is the group email for the PHACS DMs. The phone number is a group phone number, so it rings to all our phones. If you need an answer and you're not particular who you talk to, because one of us will probably have the answer for you, you can certainly dial up that group phone number. If one of us has sent you a report or a query, or you have a specific question and you know that you would like to talk to Alex or Angela or myself, Lori, then you can dial our individual extensions. And we've included the user support phone number on here. Always a good resource to call user support if you're stuck with eData or you have questions. And if it's a question that a DM can answer and you do dial up user support, they will refer you back to us. So one way or the other, you can get your questions answered when you have them. Are there any questions? Because I know we've gone through this rather quickly.
Yes, it's Lisa. At Site 5011. So my first question is, we are WestStat site, and so I'm assuming that we still get PAD IDs as we need them from WestStat rather than on the Frontier Science page, because that's the way we usually do it, is through WestStat. Correct?
Julie Davison, unless you want to speak to that, so we're not looking to change any models that are working right now.
Okay, so use WestStat. Okay, thank you. My second question is, if while a participant's taking the online survey, if it does freeze or something happens and then we log out and go back in, will it have saved all the questions the participants already answered, or do they have to start over?
Good question, Lisa. Yes, and this is applicable for when the participant is taking it outside the clinic as well.
Right.
If the window is closed, they can certainly log back in as long as the survey has not been submitted as complete. They're going to get two options. One is going to be resume, and one is going to be start over. That start over will wipe out any prior responses. If you choose the resume, that will take you back to where they left off.
That's great. Thank you. I think they'll be happy to hear that. My third question is, and forgive me if someone's already answered this and I just forgot. A couple of weeks ago, I had emailed Frontier Science to see if there was a AMP-UP Lite PH400 distribution list, email list yet for the sites, and was told that there wasn't one yet, but that there was one coming. And I was just wondering if there was one, because I want to get all our site people who need to be getting those emails on that email list. Like
This is Julie Davidson. I'm not sure about that. I know that anytime that we need to communicate with you guys, I've gone through Katie Myers and Jennifer Bryant, and then they forwarded information.
All right, because I had gotten hold of Katie and asked her to put our new research assistant on that, but I didn't know if I should also put in a request through user support, as I usually do, to add people to like a PH400 prot list or something like that.
Right. So this is Sue. Let me add to this. So I'm well aware of what you're talking about, because the NICHD model and the impact project works just as you are familiar with and just as you stated. PHACS is run a little differently, and I think this is the first time we're sort of bringing in NICHD sites to the PHACS network. So I would like to, I think we owe sites clarification on this. I'd like to sort of talk to both Julie's and Jennifer Bryant to decide how we want to do this, how we want to best do this. We want to fold into what's existing on either side or do something new. So can we get back to you on that particular?
Of course.
Right.
Okay. Because, I mean,
I think it's a good idea to create one. We just haven't done it yet, though.
Yeah, because I mean, in general, we don't have that type of infrastructure in the PHACS network. Not that we couldn't do it for this and not that it's not warranted, but we'll get back to you. We'll just talk about this and then just get back with a clarification.
Sure, thank you.
But I guess when in doubt, I think, certainly feel free to, email me or email the PHACS DM group. And then as we're sort of like going through this, any stone that we didn't quite overturn and get something in place for, we'll certainly deal with it at that point in time.
Okay, sounds good.
Does anyone else have any questions?
So thank you all for participating. I know scheduling was hard. We expect a couple sites that we're going to have to do this again for. We are going to record it. If you want to sort of get your plan in place with each of your sites after you go through the protocol, have your staff meetings. If you want to reach out to Frontier Science again and have like a half-hour phone call just to make sure everything's in order before you have that participant there. We're used to doing these types of trainings, so we'll certainly be able to do that. It's like anything else. It's like your first participant on. There's a lot that needs to be put in place, but after that, it'll be sort of like old hat. I mean, a lot of you are familiar with the systems that we're talking about here. So there's a couple new ones, but I think, again, once you get through that first participant, I think the rest of it, there's enough resources and stuff that I think it's going to be smooth sailing.
Thank you, Sue.
Can I ask a question? How are we supposed to get the access to PHACS? So when I go on FISTRA, if I don't have that, I only have Impact, ACTG.
Right. So what we're going to do is, rather than get through a registration process, we're going to reach out to all of you, and we're going to, if I have the contact here for each one, we're going to sort of have you add access onto your existing access and so we can't just assume that everybody who does, who participates in other trials such as Impact, the access is going to roll over. So we have to have somebody at your site, chances are the study coordinator or somebody there, that actually will tell us who at your site do you need to extend PHACS access to. And so we need to work with you individually to do that. We want to make sure that these people have enrollment privileges, if that's what you desire, if they can use the eData system to actually enter data, as well as any other application on the portal. So, if in fact, you can also reach out to us if you're ready by calling our user support department, and I'll tell the supervisor that that's what's actually going to happen. And so we will extend access to. But you're going to need, so things that you can proactively do on your side is that who at your site do you want to have enrollment privileges to? Who do you want to key and change data? Who do you want to be able to use a lot of the utilities that we actually showed you today? There's probably two groups of people at your site. Those that are going to be changing data, looking at data, modifying data, and having access to enrolling patients, and then maybe those others that really don't have to have that level of access. They maybe just have level access 1, where we're just viewing data, viewing reports, and if I'm off on this because you have different staff, again, we have level 2 access that really grants everybody a privilege of changing data and such, and then we have level 1 that's a little bit more restricted. So we need to know from you which people and then what level.
And then is eData just automatically rolled over once that, or do you have to install something different?
No, we're going to have to give you access to the PHACS project, and then we'll have to know from you, because there are some sites that set up where they maybe want the PHACS project on a separate PC installation, or maybe you want it on the current installation you have right now with your other projects. So we will have to work with you on your desired setup. We can entertain either one. You can have to put PHACS on a separate PC, or you can put it with your current projects, and then basically, which just means obviously if your data entry person's keying something for impact, for example, they're not going to be able to, somebody else can't key in for PHACS because they're using that PC. So those are questions that our user support can help you set up depending on which way you want to go.
Any other questions? Well, again, if you think of something offline, feel free to email any one of us or give us a call. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.